Welcome back to the Creakers. We have got to chapter 24. It's time to see if the children have listened to Lucy. The red light flickered out. Lucy's broadcast was over. "Well done, Lucy Pops," Lucy's mum said, pulling her into a hug. "Not bad, kid," said Piers Snorgan, "but never interrupt me again." "Now what?" May Annoying whined. He sounds a lot like his daughter, Lucy thought. "Now we wait," she said. "For what?" Lucy grinned. "For that." She pointed at the large tunnel she crept down earlier, the one that led down from below Whiffington to Creakerland. Far in the distance, dirt and mud were falling, but not falling down like you would expect. It was falling up. It was crumbling from the floor all the way up to the ceiling as the boom, boom, boom of marching children could be heard echoing through the twisted tunnels of the Wolleb from their bedrooms above. Suddenly, a streak of blinding hot sunlight pierced through the tunnel floor like a laser beam. Everyone jumped and gasped. May Annoying let out a high-pitched scream, "Ah!" and hid behind Mrs. Annoying. "What in the world is that?" cried Mrs. Dunstan. Lucy smiled. "It's sunlight." Then another beam of glorious light exploded through one of the wormholes and into the Wolleb. Then another and another, until the entire tunnel was flooded with the most brilliantly warm, fresh morning sunlight. The walls of the rotten tunnel began melting, dripping like a runny nose, and as the morning sun rose higher in the sky over Whiffington, its light shone deeper into the tunnel of the Wolleb, until it finally hit the rotten roots that were trapping the grown-ups and Lucy. One by one the mouldy green bars dried up and turned into powdery dust, crumbling at the slightest human touch into puffs of decayed Wolleb powder. "It's working!" cried Old Man Carvey. "We're free!" "Not so fast, you rotten stinkers!" screeched Grunt, as he and his army of Creakers leapt back into Main Street, Creakerland. "It's the daylight!" Guff cried, seeing the warm light glistening magically out of Whiffington and up into their world, crumbling away the walls of the Wolleb. "She be letting in the bright down here," gasped Scratch in horror. "The kidder be trying to kill us Creakers," Sniff shrieked, as they ducked for cover, hiding themselves in whatever dark shadows they could find. All the other Creakers ran for it, disappearing back down the tunnel as fast as they could, with stinking smoke billowing from their black, treacly bottoms as the sunlight touched them. "Let's go!" Lucy cried, leading all the grown-ups down the tunnel, feeling the kind glow of sunlight on her skin as they arrived at the hundreds of wormholes that led back to Whiffington. She stood over the first, which was now 5 times bigger than before, and still growing, as the sunlight melted away all the rottenness of the Wolleb. She shielded her eyes from the light so she could see into it. Once her pupils had adjusted, she saw 50 or so friendly children peering down at them from her bedroom above. "Norman!" Lucy called, her heart skipping when she saw the unmistakable silhouette of Norman in his scout uniform. Lucy could see that he had propped her mattress up against the wall of her bedroom, allowing the fresh sunlight to chase away the shadows beneath her bed, where the light never normally reached. The pure sunbeams were too strong for the rottenness of the Wolleb, and with the mattress out of the way there was no stopping it penetrating the entrances to the Wolleb, hiding under every child's bed. Lucy's plan was working. Or, in the Wolleb's turn, it was all going horribly wrong. "Lucy, I'm sorry we fell asleep," Norman shouted back. "But then we saw you on the telly and we did what you said. We started stripping the bed and this hole just melted into the floor." "Great," Lucy said. "Well done." "I helped too," called Ella. "We both did. We're Normellatron." Lucy blinked. "What?" "Normellatron," Ella shouted back. "Oh, never mind. The stupid name was his idea anyway." We're here to rescue you. I hope there's a badge for this, Norman said. Suddenly a long rope rose up out of the hole in front of Lucy like a snake from a basket. It had perfect knots at regular intervals ready to be climbed. As Lucy watched, the Whiffington kids threw ropes into the Wolleb through every sunny hole in the squashy floor. There were hundreds of them. Norman, these are some of the best knots I've ever seen. I'm so proud of you, Norman's dad said, a tear twinkling in his eye as he gazed at the ropes. Thanks, Norman, Lucy called down into the world above, and Norman gave her a huge smile back. Right, grown-ups, Lucy said, looking around. Take your time climbing out of the Wolleb. There's no need to rush. The grown-ups looked confused for a moment before Mrs. Dunstan caught Lucy's wink and understood. She's speaking the Wolleb language, Mrs. Dunstan hissed to the grown-ups standing next to her. Pass it on. What she actually means is, hurry up, this place is going to collapse, whispered Mr. Quirk. The grown-ups started climbing down into the holes and back to Whiffington at once. Lucy marched around, overseeing the escape, making sure they all got in. Old Man Carvey, Ella's parents, Page Turner, and every single mum and dad and grandma and granddad and aunt and uncle, and every single boy and girl. She wasn't leaving anyone behind. Suddenly the ground shook violently, and more beams of brilliant sunlight exploded sideways out of the wall. Lucy, what's happening? Shouted Norman, peering into the Wolleb. I don't know, she called. I think maybe the Wolleb is becoming unstable. I don't know how much longer it's going to hold. As she said this, a little voice in her mind added, What's going to happen to it once we've all climbed out? She glanced back along the winding tunnel and saw the pointy ears of the 4 Creakers poking out from behind lumps of melting mud and crumbling rock as they hid from the sunlight. Lucy's heart suddenly sank. The Wolleb is their home, she thought. Was she really going to leave and let this place turn to dust? Could she really destroy these creatures and their entire world? Lucy didn't want anyone to get hurt, not even the rotten Creakers. Lucy, you go first, darling, Mrs. Dunstan said, giving Lucy a little nudge towards the rope. No, Mum, you go first. I'm rescuing you, remember, Lucy said, and pointed at the rope. Oh, yes, Mrs. Dunstan said, and quickly began climbing into what was now an enormous hole leading to Lucy's bedroom in Whiffington. Lucy watched as her mum climbed out and was lifted to safety by Norman. She had done it. She was the last human left in the Wolleb. She reached out and grabbed hold of the knotted rope, ready to leave this place behind once and for all. But just as her fist tightened around the rope, she felt someone else's fist tighten around her leg, and she was jerked back into the Wolleb. Ah! Lucy screamed. But how could a creaker be grabbing her leg? The beams of sunlight pouring up through the holes into the Wolleb would surely have turned any normal creaker to dozy dust. Lucy looked back and got her answer immediately. This was no ordinary creaker. It's the Creaker King, Lucy breathed. Things are just not getting any better, are they? Let's see what happens in the next chapter.